This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi has chaired a government meeting devoted to the local government, monetary and banking sectors, and water security, according to a press release issued by the Prime Minister's office. The visiting Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi has underlined here in Algiers the need to strengthen economic cooperation between Algeria and her country, notably in the areas of trade and energy. Dozens of people, including children and women, were killed and others were injured since dawn today, and dozens of homes and buildings were destroyed in the ongoing Zionist occupation bombings of the Gaza Strip by land, sea, and air. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has terminated the functions of the President of the National Economic, Social and Environmental Council, CNES, Sidi Mohamed Bouchnak Khaladi, and appointed Mrs. Rabia Kharfi in his place, according to a press release issued by the Presidency of the Republic on Wednesday. Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi chaired Wednesday a government meeting devoted to the local government, monetary and banking sectors, water security, according to a press release issued by the Prime Minister's office. The draft texts relating to local authorities are part of the implementation of the commitments made by the President of the Republic to strengthen participatory democracy and the economic role of local authorities in the development and diversification of the national economy, as well as the reforms of the fiscal and financial system for the benefit of local authorities, with the aim of providing them with resources enabling them to strengthen their economic and social role. In implementation of the program of the President of the Republic relating to water security, the government examined a draft executive decree declaring the operation relating to the construction of the downstream connection of the Bijaya seawater desalination plant to be in the public interest, with a view of reinforcing the supply of drinking water. The visiting Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi has underlined here in Algiers the need to strengthen economic cooperation between Algeria and her country, notably in the areas of trade and energy. In a statement following her meeting Wednesday with the President of the Republic, Mr. Marsudi stressed the need to raise the level of bilateral relations between the two countries, notably in the economic sphere, especially as these relations are already very strong in the political sphere. Mrs. Marsudi also said that she had discussed at length with President Tebboune the actions to be taken at bilateral level to defend just and humanitarian causes, notably the Palestinian cause. The Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, has received a delegation from the Communist Party of China, led by the member of the Party Central Committee and Vice President of the All China Women's Federation, Ms. Huang Shuangwei, says a press release from the APN. At the start of the meeting, Ibrahim Boughali hailed the level of the distinguished historical relations that unite the two countries and the two peoples, seizing this opportunity to express his sincere condolences following the earthquake that recently struck the province of Gansu, said the same source. And the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, has chaired a meeting of the Preparatory Commission of the International Parliamentary Conference of Solidarity with the Sahrawi People, according to an NPN press release. At the meeting, which was devoted to assessing the preparations underway for the conference, Ibrahim Boughali stressed the need to ensure all the necessary measures or means for the success of this event. The meeting was attended by members of the Preparatory Commission in charge of organizing the conference, executives from the two chambers of Parliament, and a representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the national community abroad. In the Western Sahara file now, Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund, the world's largest, has announced that it has excluded the Zionist group Delek from its portfolio because of its activities linked to illegal oil exploration off the coast of occupied Western Sahara, according to the International Observatory Western Sahara Resources Watch, MSRW. More details in this report by our colleague Saad Bouazi.
On 18 December 2023, the Norwegian government's $1.5 trillion sovereign wealth fund announced that it had excluded the Delek Group from its portfolio by selling its investment of around $57 million, said Western Sahara Resource Watch, noting that the reason given was that the Zionist company's subsidiary NewMed Energy had signed an oil exploration contract with Morocco in December 2022, covering the license of the occupied town of Bujdur. The NGO relayed a 15-page analysis published by the Board of Ethics of the Norwegian government's Sovereign Wealth Fund, dated 30th May 2023, in which it underlined that Morocco has no legal and sovereign rights over the resources of Western Sahara, deploring the fact that since 2001, Morocco has been exploring for oil and gas off the coast of Saharan territory, which it maintains under military occupation. The board of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund considered the exploration activities of the Zionist group Delek off the coast of Western Sahara to be a serious violation of the fundamental ethical rules of the fund, because the activity is not conducted in accordance with the wishes and interests of the people of Western Sahara, and because it contributes to maintaining an unresolved situation in the region. In particular, the document challenged Rabat's claim to have a so-called legal right to regulate resource extraction activities in Western Sahara. Western Sahara Resource Watch reported that the Zionist group Delek is the fourth oil company to be excluded from the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund's portfolio because of its involvement in the illegal exploitation of Sahrawi resources. The first was the American company Kerr-McGee in 2005, followed in 2016 by Cosmos Energy and its British partner Kern Energy, the NGO points out, noting that the Norwegian fund is also in the habit of excluding long-standing customers of Western Saharan phosphate exported illegally by the Moroccan phosphate company OCP. In this respect, the International Observatory calls on other investors in the Zionist group Delek, such as Deutsche Bank, Vanguard Group and BlackRock, to act in the same way as the Norwegian government fund.
Let's shift now to the situation in the Middle East, where dozens of people, including children and women, were killed and others were injured since dawn today, and dozens of homes and buildings were destroyed in the ongoing Zionist occupation bombing of the Gaza Strip by land, sea and air. The Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip has claimed more than 20,000 lives, including at least 8,000 children and 6,200 women, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. Despite repeated appeals to spare lives of civilians, the deadly Zionist strikes continue on the Gaza Strip, as does the fighting on the ground. Saad Bougazi reports on the situation unfolding in the war-torn Palestinian territory.
Local sources reported that dozens of people were killed and others were injured today in the ongoing occupation attacks on Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip and on several areas in the central Gaza Strip. During the past 24 hours, 55 people were killed in Zionist raids on homes in the city of Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip. After a 7-day truce ended on December 1st, international pressure has increased to obtain a new pause which would allow more hostages to be released and more international aid to enter the small territory, which is suffering a humanitarian disaster under total siege by the Zionist entity since 9 October. The first truce led to the release of 105 hostages and 240 Palestinians held in Zionist prisons. Yesterday, Zionist strikes in Rafah and Khan Yunis in the south of the enclave, Deir el-Balah in the center and in the city of Gaza, killed at least 11 defenseless civilians. The Zionist savage aggression has caused immense destruction. Hospitals are out of action and 1.9 million people, or 85% of the population, have fled their homes, according to the UN. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, 90% of the population of Gaza are regularly deprived of food for an entire day. Without drinking water, food and sanitation facilities that only a humanitarian ceasefire can provide, child deaths from disease could exceed those killed in the bombardments, UNICEF warned. On Wednesday, the UN Security Council once again postponed a vote on a resolution aimed at improving the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza after several days of negotiations to avoid another veto from the United States, which is opposed to a ceasefire.
And the Israeli occupation authorities have admitted the involvement of 19 prison guards affiliated with the Israel Prison Services in the severe beating of Palestinian prisoner Tahir Abu Sa'b, 38, from the northern West Bank city of Qalqiliyah last month, which led to his death. The newspaper Israel Hayom said today that Abu Sa'b, whose death was declared on November 18, underwent an autopsy that confirmed that he had been assaulted and beaten, which caused his death. The director of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, Catherine Russell, has warned that children in the Gaza Strip barely have a drop of drinking water to drink, as the UN Security Council postponed on Wednesday for the third day running its meeting on the adoption of a new resolution calling for a truce in the Palestinian enclave, the scene of a barbaric Zionist aggression since October 7. Jamal Silmani has more.
Access to sufficient quantities of drinking water is a matter of life and death, said Catherine Russell, pointing out that children and their families have to use water from unsafe, highly polluted sources. Without safe water, many more children will die of deprivation and disease in the coming days, she added. The humanitarian alert was triggered after more than 10 weeks of almost constant bombardment of the besieged Palestinian enclave by the Israeli occupation army. In an attempt to escape the bombardments that have heavily affected the production, treatment, and distribution networks in the Gaza Strip, more than 1.4 million uprooted Gazans have taken refuge in facilities run by the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA. However, according to UNICEF, the children recently displaced in the south of the Rafah Governorate have only 1.5 to 2 liters of water a day, and that the water services are on the verge of collapse. The UN agency said in a statement, to survive, the estimated minimum is 3 liters a day. As alarming as the lack of drinking water, hundreds of thousands of displaced people, half of them children, are also in desperate need of food, shelter, medicines, and protection.
And the Euro-Mediterranean Observatory for Human Rights, Euromed Monitor, has said that more than 71% of Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip suffer from extreme hunger. Saeed Bougazi has more details again.
According to Euromed Monitor, more than 71% of participants in a study carried out in the Gaza Strip said they were suffering from extreme hunger, which confirms that the Zionist entity is using famine as a weapon against Palestinian civilians. Euromed Monitor conducted an analytical study involving a sample of 1,200 people in the Gaza Strip to determine the impact of the humanitarian crisis being experienced by the inhabitants of Gaza in the midst of the ongoing Zionist genocidal war, which began on 7th October. According to the results of the study, 98% of those questioned said they were eating insufficient quantities of food, while 64% of participants admitted to eating grass, fruit, unripe food, and out-of-date materials to satisfy their hunger. The study also revealed that the rate of access to water in the Gaza Strip is 1.5 liters per person per day. This is 15 liters less than the minimum quantity of water necessary for survival at the level required by international standards, noted Euromed Monitor. The Euromed Human Rights Observatory underlined that international humanitarian law strictly prohibits the use of famine as a weapon. As the occupying power, the Zionist entity is obliged under international humanitarian law to meet the basic needs and guarantee the protection of the population of the Gaza Strip.
And the World Food Programme has announced the arrival in Gaza of 750-ton convoy of food aid, the first from Jordan since the start of the Zionist aggression against Palestine. The 46-truck convoy, organized by the World Food Programme and a Jordanian humanitarian NGO, was carrying 750 tons of food aid and required weeks of coordination with all parties, the UN agency said in a statement. With this, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for weekly programs, special programs devoted to the achievement made by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, since he took power, and it will be followed by also the achievements made in the sector of energy and oil in the country since last year. With this, we come to the end of it. We'll meet again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Aljazeera International, and bye-bye for now.
The year 2023 was marked by Algeria's election as non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. The Algerian presidency has described the election as a diplomatic success, showing that the new Algeria is back on the international stage, adding that it reflected the international community's respect and esteem for the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune. In recognition of its pivotal role in the region, Algeria has been elected with an overwhelming majority of the 193 UN General Assembly member states in the first round of a secret ballot as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for a 2-year term starting on the 1st of January 2024. Following the election of Algeria, her permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, had this to say.
I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to the friendly countries that voted today in favor of the Algerian candidature as a non-permanent member of the Security Council for the term 2024-2025. Algeria's membership constitutes indeed a high priority for Algeria's diplomacy and for President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. This brilliant election is another testimony and a mark of recognition of Algeria's positive contribution and tireless effort to maintain peace and security at regional and international level. It is also a heavy but still honorable and very rewarding responsibility. Algeria will embrace this responsibility with a deep sense of humility, dedication, and commitment, and will contribute as a responsible and credible partner to enable global action in the face of global challenges by presenting ideas and initiatives that would enhance the role of multilateralism and maintaining international peace and security, thus meeting the need and the expectation and the aspiration of all mankind.
The adhesion of Algeria to the Security Council shows the international community's recognition of her contribution to the promotion of international peace and security and her commitment to defend fair causes with rigor and dedications. On the occasion, ceremony was organized here in Algiers in the presence of top government officials, diplomats and ambassadors. Two of the ambassadors who attended the ceremony had this to say.
I want to congratulate Algeria on its election. We are confident that Algeria will be a very good representative of Africa and a good representative for the Arab world. They have the principles, respect the principles of the UN Charter, for countries that supports sovereignty, sovereign integrity of states, as well as the self-determination of states.
Algeria has a big potential to contribute greatly for the work of the Security Council in the United Nations. We are the member of the non-permanent seat in the Security Council starting this year. So Japan and Algeria will be together in the Security Council next year. And that will give us a great opportunity to work together. And we know that Algeria is very firm in respecting and also safeguarding the principles of UN Charter, and which is very important in the current situation. And we are calling for the promotion of rule of law in the international society. And so we count very much on Algeria, and we are very much looking forward to working together with Algeria within and even outside the Security Council.
The election of Algeria is the result of the President of the Republic's vision, an approach to the preservation of peace and security worldwide based on peaceful coexistence, peaceful settlement of disputes, and non-interference in the internal affairs of countries. This year, 2023, was marked by the speech of President Tebboune at the 78th session of UN General Assembly in New York, in which he stressed the need to build a more just and equitable multipolar world. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune said that for the past 50 years, the Algerian government has been pointing out how the global order's dysfunction prevents equality among member states, and that conflicts and crises have reached unprecedented levels and displaced millions amid an increasing number of emergencies worldwide. He stressed the necessity to uphold the rules of the Charter and establish a sound framework to strengthen international cooperation, adding that the global goals must be achieved in a multipolar world.
لقد حان الوقت للتفكير معا في سبل إعلاء قيم ومبادئ ميثاق الأمم المتحدة وتعزيز التزاماتنا الجماعية وإرساء الأسس المتينة التي تفضي إلى المزيد من التعاون العالمي الفعال بشأن القضايا الرئيسية حتى نتمكن من إشعاع السلم والأمن الدوليين وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة في ظل عالم متعدد الأقطاب.
President Tebboune says, quote, "The time has come for all of us to reflect together to uphold the principles and goals of the UN Charter and to strengthen our common engagement and to establish a sound framework for further effective international cooperation on major issues with the aim of consolidating international peace and security, as well as achieving sustainable development goals in a multipolar world." End of quote. As Algeria prepares to become a non-permanent council member, it stands ready to strengthen cooperation with all council members and use her experience in mediation to seek peaceful solutions to conflicts. The president said it would bring the aspirations of the African continent and Arab world to the council as it focuses on lasting solutions to conflicts by dealing with their root causes.
ومن هذا المنظور فإن الجزائر التي تتأهب لتبوء مقعدها غير الدائم بمجلس الأمن تعي ثقة المسؤولية الملقاة على عاتقها بالنظر للتحديات الجمة التي تواجهها المجموعة الدولية. وأغتنم هذه السانحة لأجدد الشكر لكل الدول 184 التي صوتت لصالح بلادي، وهي ثقة ستحرص الجزائر على صونها أثناء عهدتها بالمجلس، وستسعى على تجسيدها بالتعاون الوطيد مع كافة الدول الأعضاء في مجلس الأمن وفي هيئة الأمم المتحدة.
The president says, quote, "Algeria, which prepares herself to be a non-permanent member of the Security Council, is aware about her responsibility, particularly in the face of the challenges in the international community is facing. Bearing all that in mind, I want to take this opportunity to once again express my gratitude to the 184 member states who voted in favor of Algeria, and this is an expression of trust that Algeria will seek to preserve throughout her term in the Security Council. Algeria is ready to strengthen cooperation with all member states in the Security Council." End of quote. The progress on the Council's reform is also essential. Algeria will continue its efforts to change the historic injustices against the African continent and support oppressed peoples fighting in their freedom. Pointing to the Algerian government's long-standing support for the Palestinian people's right to establish an independent state, he called on the Council to adopt a resolution to guarantee the two-state solution and end the unilateral practices of the occupying authority including the settlements on the Palestinian territory. In his speech, he called for an extraordinary assembly session to grant the State of Palestine the status of a full United Nations member state. He stressed Algeria's readiness to share her experience in combating terrorism, which must be a priority for the entire African region.